Dyson is one of Britain's most successful companies, known for its range of bagless hoovers and bladeless fans. The company employs over 13,000 people and has annual revenues of £5.4 million. However, it hasn't all been plain sailing for the British entrepreneur, with a young James Dyson taking extraordinarily large risks, weighed down by large debt and mortgaged to the hilt when major domestic appliance makers refused to produce his products, forcing him to go alone. Let's take a look at how he did it. James Dyson was born just after the Second World War and was educated at independent Gresham School in Norfolk, where his father was head of classics. A young Dyson enjoyed making things, casting toy soldiers from molten lead and model gliders and aeroplanes powered by tiny motors. After the death of his father when he was 9, money was tight in the Dyson household. He left school with A-levels in art, ancient history and general studies, which did not point towards a career as a successful inventor. Dyson admitted that the formula in science had put him off studying the subject. However, his passion for design saw him enroll at Byam Shaw School of Drawing and Painting. The following year, he won a place at the Royal College of Art, a place where nonconformity was celebrated. It was here that Dyson began experimenting with new lightweight materials such as perspex, polyester and acrylic. In 1970, Dyson joined Retort, an engineering firm based in Bath, Somerset. His first commission came from his boss, Jeremy Fry, who requested a pair of Jesus floats. Yes, you heard that right, Jesus floats, so his daughter could walk on water. After this, Dyson and Fry worked on a flat-bottomed landing craft that could lift itself over the water on a layer of bubbles. This craft was called the Sea Truck, and Dyson's first job was to sell it. His first idea for a mass production product came when restoring an old farmhouse in the Cotswolds. It required shifting a lot of soil and cement by a wheelbarrow. He reasoned, why not use a ball instead of a wheel to make manoeuvring the barrow easier and less likely to sink in the muddy ground? In Dyson's own words, it was the worst time to start a business, with no Silicon Valley investors and bank loans peaking at a 24% interest rate. With a large overdraft and debt up to his eyebrows, Dyson set up his first factory in a row of pigsties close to his home in Badminton, Gloucestershire. The family grew their own vegetables to survive, and his wife sold paintings on the side to make ends meet. There were no DIY shops to sell the wheelbarrows through, so Dyson took out newspaper adverts to sell them. When he moved to a larger factory, Dyson needed a device to clean the air of the powder he used to coat the metal barrows. He realised a similar process could be scaled down in size and used to make bagless vacuum cleaners. He had also grown frustrated with his own vacuum cleaner, which lost suction as its bag clogged with dust. He took out the bag and replaced it with a cardboard prototype that worked. He managed to attract investors for his wheelbarrow business, but they had agreed to sell the business against his wishes. After this happened, Dyson was determined not to repeat it with his next invention. Despite the working cardboard prototype, it took 5 years and more than 5,000 prototypes for James Dyson to create the world's first bagless vacuum cleaner. The particles in household dust are as fine as tobacco smoke, making it an almost impossible process without suitable technology. Prototype number 5127 saved Dyson from rack and ruin. He went with his creation to all the major manufacturers, but they rejected him. Next, Dyson tried the American companies, with Amway agreeing to produce them. However, once he showed them the plans, they cancelled the deal and sued Dyson for the money they had spent. Japanese company Apex came to the rescue, licensing Dyson's Hoover, and they used it to build G-Force, a Hoover that sold for over $2,000 in Japan. At one point, Dyson was £1 million in debt to the banks, but they stood by him despite the large loans that may not be repaid. By the mid-1990s, Dyson was selling the most Hoovers in Britain, despite it being the most expensive on the market, producing them from a factory in Wales. His slogan, "Say goodbye to the bag," attracted consumers, but also competitors, with Dyson suing rival Hoover for $5 million for patent infringement. A number of products including hairdryers, heaters and humidifiers followed, with Dyson putting his head inside a bladeless fan on television to show how it worked. In 2002, Dyson angered the British government for moving Hoover manufacturing to Malaysia. The move cost 800 jobs, but the lower manufacturing costs and the opportunity to be closer to emerging markets was too good an opportunity to pass up. The firm's research and development hub has remained in Wiltshire despite the movements of manufacturing around the world. When visitors come to this development site on a former RAF base, they must tape over the lens on their smartphone before entering the site. Some of the buildings are also so well camouflaged they can't be seen on Google Maps. When developing a new type of hairdryer, Dyson's engineers weren't even allowed to reveal the reason for growing their hair out, even to their partners. Although Dyson has designed and produced a number of successful products, he has also had his fair share of failures. The first was a contra-rotating washing machine, which featured two drums rotating in opposite directions to make washing more effective. The product cost over £1,000 and was shelved due to it being loss-making. He has also pulled the funding on his electric car development due to increasing costs and global competition. Initially, they planned to make 3 cars according to sources, but ended up focusing on a 600-mile range SUV. The move into electric cars was a daring one and cost Dyson about £500 million to scrap. The company would have to sell each car for £150,000 to break even, far more than electric models from other manufacturers. Dyson has to make a profit and can't absorb the huge losses that other manufacturers face at the moment. He also abandoned a medical ventilator that he developed in response to the pandemic. After changing specifications from the government, Dyson shelved the product and lost £20 million he had invested into it. The designs aren't limited to household gadgets, and Dyson has designed and sold boats to the military and a missile carrier to the aerospace industry. He also caused issues when he sold weapons to both sides on the Yom Kippur War between the Israelis and the Arabs. Outside of work, he lives in Doddington Park, a 130-acre Grade 1 listed mansion in Gloucestershire. The house is 52,000 square feet, and the main building has a staggering 51 bedrooms. Dyson bought the property in 2003 for £15 million, and the main mansion alone is now valued at £20 million. He is also one of Europe's biggest farmers, with 35,000 acres of land from Lincolnshire to Somerset. When the company moved to Singapore, Dyson paid a reported £43 million for the penthouse apartment in the prestigious Woolwich residence. The 5-bedroom flat was the most expensive sold in the country, and Dyson later sold it in 2020 at a loss for £36 million. He also advocated for Britain to leave the EU due to their lawmaking after they enforced laws backing rival manufacturers, despite their Hoovers using more electricity when clogged, something Dyson's Hoovers never suffered from. He thinks that connecting with the Commonwealth is a better alternative than Europe, claiming that Britain is excellent at trading on a global scale. Despite voting for Brexit, Dyson moved his manufacturing base to Singapore. Critics say Dyson turned his back on the UK and did it to dodge taxes, but he made it clear that the increased costs due to Singapore's higher standard of living, and also pointed to moving to an area that encouraged industry, manufacturing and engineering. When Dyson tried to double the size of his factory in Wiltshire, it was refused by local planners. British companies also failed to keep up with his production speeds, making the company more reliant on foreign companies for materials to make their products. The final straw was when the British government refused to help Dyson fund his electric car venture when competing with major manufacturers with significantly larger budgets. James Dyson has managed to forge a successful career out of designing and manufacturing some of the world's most innovative products. For a man with limited engineering qualifications after leaving school, Dyson has built one of the largest private companies in Britain, and much of his success can be attributed to his determination in the face of failure that have led to his biggest successes. Now, as he nears retirement, his son prepares to take over the reins and drive the company forward to new heights.